Well, the NFL has done a fantastic job of making it a 24/7, 365-day-a-year proposition, and they're good at it. So I can't necessarily, fault you for it. But at times the NFL is like, they're doing a whole lot.
I'm an absolute marketing pawn. I really am. Yeah, I fall for everything.
Everything?
God is great. God is great. And so is the NFL.
Oh, man. How all 32 NFL teams will look to improve this offseason. Look, man, this is one of the more fun times of the year. I will say when we get to this time of the year, when we are talking about NFL free agency and the like, and how these teams could be looking much, much different based on what they decide to do from a roster construction standpoint. It's fascinating. And we've already seen some major moves already from teams. Hello, Washington, with the release of Carson Wentz, Bobby Wagner being released from the Los Angeles Rams. There's been already some major moves that teams have had to do in terms of getting under the salary cap. So what other moves could be made? Bill Barnwell of ESPN put this together, predicting the 2023 NFL offseason moves, how to improve all 32 NFL teams. And there's some teams of note that I want to get to, but we'll start real quick with your Dallas Cowboys. And I'm going to see if you can take a guess at what he believes the Cowboys need to do to improve this offseason going into next year.
I would say, in the broadest terms, it's going to be add around the quarterback. I'm going to say that they add a receiver.
No, actually, Barnwell doesn't even touch the quarterback or the receiver. He says for the Cowboys, resolve the running back situation.
Okay.
He says, quote, after years of having a clearly defined 1-2 punch, the Cowboys can go in several different directions at running back. Ezekiel Elliott's status is in question after he battled injuries the past 2 years, while Tony Pollard is an unrestricted free agent, most likely going to be tagged. Mm-hmm. And, of course, he fractured his left fibula in Dallas's loss to San Francisco. Both players could be back in 2023, or the team could start over. Now, of course, Elliott, who's the franchise cornerstone, who signed that 6-year, $90 million extension back before the 2019 season, averaged 4.7 yards per carry and over 101 rushing yards per game before the extension. Since the extension, gentlemen, 4.2 yards per carry and 66.9 yards per game. Here's how wild that is. Over that 4-year span, per NFL Next Gen Stats, Ezekiel Elliott's 1,013 carries have generated just 54 yards rushing over expectation. What? Suggesting that he could be ably replaced by a league average back. Now, Tony Pollard during that same time, 510 carries have generated a whopping 446 rushing yards over expectation over that same stretch.
God is great. That is... I was not expecting the disparity to be that big. I knew it was going to be there.
Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
Tony Pollard's been so much more productive.
And that number right there tells me, hey, franchise tag. I don't care what Steven says. Maybe not. It's going to be Tony Pollard. But Barnwell makes an interesting point, because imagine, what would your reaction be? Hypothetical. They do start over. And they just say, Tony Pollard, thanks. Appreciate you. We'll see you later. We'll get maybe a 4th round comp pick for you or something. Maybe a 3rd if we're lucky, if the contract's big enough. Zeke, bye-bye. And then they move up in the draft because they're scared that someone, Philadelphia Eagles, are going to move up and get their running back.
They don't even have to move up.
Yeah, or they don't have to because they have a premium pick.
Yeah.
They're going to take that pick, and they go jump the Philadelphia Eagles and give up draft capital and take one Bijan Robinson.
I would go nuclear if this team utilized draft capital to move up.
That's what I wanted to hear.
To go take a running back. I would lose my damn mind. I think a lot of Cowboys fans would do the same.
For the life of me, I can't remember what outlet this was. I think it was actually Katie Drummond over at Cowboys Wire had mentioned that he was breaking down all the possibilities in the draft, and he said that exact same thing. They could always move up to get their guy, but I don't think Cowboys fans would be very appreciative of that.
It's funny you brought up the Eagles because I had tweeted out something similar last night. I said, you know what? Because apparently the report is that they're not going to re-sign Miles Sanders in Philadelphia. And, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles own 2 first-round picks, including the number 10 overall pick. Not that they would need to draft a running back, but I could see the pettiness of Howie Roseman knowing that offense that he has in Philly, that if Bijan Robinson is still there, which he should be by the time you get to 10, that he would take Mr. Robinson there and put him in that offense with Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and that offensive line. Scary hours if they were to do that. And he's petty enough to where he just might do it.
I love Howie Roseman so much that I hate him. He's just so good, and he would do that. I mean, hey, we all thought that Dallas Goedert was going to fall into the Cowboys' lap a couple years ago. And what do? They jumped the Dallas Cowboys by a pick, and they go get him. They draft Dallas Goedert. He's named Dallas because the family were Dallas Cowboys fans.
That's right.
And he ended up being really good for them, and still is.
Well, that's how Bill Barnwell feels like the Cowboys situation would need to go in terms of fixing their running back situation. Now, remember, if the Cowboys do decide to move on from Ezekiel Elliott and designate him as a post-June 1 cut, it would free up $10.9 million in cap space. Right now, the Cowboys are projected to be $7.6 million over the cap. So there are some moves to be made there. Meanwhile, that $10-some-odd million would immediately hit your cap if you don't get a long-term deal worked out with Tony Pollard and you franchise tag him, the tag being $10.1 million. But yeah, that's the story of the offseason right now, is the running back position for the Dallas Cowboys and what page they decide to turn when it comes to their running back room. Give me a team. Pick a team that you want to hear about in terms of what they need to do to improve, and we'll talk about it.
We just mentioned them, and they actually have a few key free agents. Speaking of Miles Sanders, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
I would like to know because they're going to be good next year, regardless, because they had some turnover in the coaching staff. They have some key free agents, but that's still a talented team.
It is.
Even though I want to slap him every time I see him, Nick Sirianni knows what he's doing out there.
Well, for them, it is convince Jason Kelce to return for another year.
Ooh.
The All-World Center is 35 years old and had a terrific performance again this season, and tried to convince the All-Pro to return, among other decisions that they have to make, with several guys who are out of contract on the defensive side. So just think about this real quick. Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Robert Quinn, all out of contract now.
Wow.
James Bradbury will need to be re-signed. Marcus Epps, TJ Edwards also unrestricted. CJ Gardner-Johnson, got to make a decision on him as well. So they've got a lot of key pieces that they've got to try to bring back, especially on the defensive end. But on offense, Kelce is an unrestricted free agent himself and has flirted with the idea of retirement in the past. So not only trying to convince him to come back, but also re-signing him as well is what Barnwell has for the Philadelphia Eagles there.
It's interesting because I for sure would have thought it would have been something on the defensive end, but I didn't even realize that Jason Kelce was flirting with the idea of retirement, let alone as a free agent, unrestricted free agent. You know, I feel like if he plays, it's going to be with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think that number is going to matter, but if he's leaning toward, I mean, you see it on his podcast with Travis Kelce that is absolutely gold, by the way. He's got a couple young kids. You know, he's aging. He's done a lot. You know, Super Bowl, sorry. But he's done a lot in his career. He's one of the best centers we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, on his way to Canton.
Yeah, he's on his way to Canton. Like, outside of the Super Bowl ring, there's not much else there for him. So maybe he does say, hey, I've got some good things going for me outside of football. Got a young family. I want to take the kids to school every morning. You know, I'm going to hang them up. So, and he doesn't get enough credit for what he did out there this season, because Lane Johnson got a lot of the credit being Superman, you know, playing with the torn groin. I don't think Jason Kelce gets enough love just because he's been a mainstay and it's kind of expected of him. He's helped keep that thing together.
Yeah, the Eagles are going to be an interesting team to watch because of all the free agents. But yeah, on the offensive side with Jason Kelce, who's been that stalwart there at center for them for a long time, their ability to have that kind of stability there is going to be key for them going into the offseason. Other teams, for example, in the NFC, for the New Orleans Saints, signed Derek Carr.
Ooh.
I do ultimately believe that is where he ends up. I know that he's going to have flirtations with, the New York Jets, maybe another team or two, but I do ultimately think he ends up in New Orleans. I think, him and Drew Brees got the same kind of vibe going. I think that Drew Brees will help him assimilate into New Orleans quite comfortably there. And the fit, I think it's pretty seamless. Now, what they do with Michael Thomas there is going to be another question because he could be a cap casualty given what they owe him going into this upcoming year. But you still got Alvin Kamara there for who knows how long, given his legal troubles right now.
Yeah.
But if things are able to play out the way that the Saints hope that they will, I think Derek Carr is going to be a New Orleans Saint.
I agree that the fit is pretty seamless. I mean, he fits the mold of what they had for over a decade. It seems like that is a very New Orleans fit, and there's some decent pieces there to at least get started. They would have to find a way to build around. And hey, thanks, Denver. You gave us a few picks for that head coach of yours. So they've got some assets now. That's what's plagued them the past few years. They haven't had assets, and when they make moves, it's nothing crazy. They gave up C.J. Gardner-Johnson for, a mid-round pick. They didn't really get anything out of him, and he ended up being a Pro Bowl caliber safety who's probably going to get franchise tagged. It's been pretty bleak for New Orleans, but something tells me that New York, the Jets, they're going to screw up the Aaron Rodgers thing just because they're the Jets and they're going to find a way to screw it up. I feel like that they might have to make a heavy push there. Maybe, just maybe.
Look, ultimately, I think Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay. Whenever he decides to reveal to us what he did in darkness for those 4 or 5 days or whatever he was doing, I think he stays in Green Bay. I know Mark Murphy and that organization and Aaron Rodgers, they're probably sick of each other at this point, but it's probably to go with the devil that you know, the devil that you don't. And I don't trust Jordan Love as far as I can throw him right now. If I'm the Green Bay Packers, whom have said all the right things about, yeah, we believe Jordan Love could come in and take over for Aaron Rodgers. Okay. All right. F around and find out. We'll see.
The GM was even at the podium today saying, the next step for Jordan Love is he's got to play. And
Goodicke said that today?
He did. And he said that's the next step in his progression is he's got to play. So you don't know what that means. These GMs get out there and say things, and then Aaron Rodgers comes back and says, "Hey, I'm gonna finish my career here. I'm just gonna wrap it up. One more year, why not?" Then they got to make a decision there.
I mean, I hope for Jordan Love he can play, but the way that's been handled so far doesn't look great.
Not at all.
Before we get out of here, I found this piece of audio because Mike McDaniel, despite some questionable decision making when it comes to handling his quarterback, seems like a pretty cool dude. And here is what he had to say as he joined Pro Football Talks, Mike Florio and Chris Sims today. And Chris Sims apparently has something to say about his drip. And here's what Mike McDaniel had to say in response.
We're so glad he's here, Mike McDaniel.
Oh, man.
Coach of the Miami Dolphins heading into year number 2.
What's that old man for? Oh, man. Well, what is that old man for?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what that old man
Seems
for
layered.
is, sir. It is layered. You're the best dressed coach. You came in here looking like Johnny Miami with great outfit. I just don't see any coaches like that. So I was going to go, oh, man, this guy, look at him, Miami, coaches money. That's what I was coming in
Can't
with.
hide money.
That's right.
Not trying to. Spend a lot of life poor.
That's right. It's a very good answer. Right. You got some money. You might as well spend it. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, good way to start it.
Mike McDaniel not here for Chris Sims and his shenanigans, okay?
He's a gem. He's an absolute
I like
gem.
McDaniel. I really do.
I love him.
I like him, but my man got to figure out how to handle his quarterback a little bit better.
Who?
Just saying.
Yeah, McDaniel. I feel like he might get a little bit of the brunt of the organizational blame there because I feel like maybe first-year head coach might have been told, hey, you're going to play him. I don't know. I'm just theorizing. That's what this time of the year is for. But McDaniel, he is the best press conference in the NFL. Like today, they said, what traits are you looking for in these players at the Combine this week? He goes, the best traits.
Oh,
and that's it.
He wasn't looking for no 3.5s and no
just
defensive linemen trying to say their mamas. He wasn't
with a straight face.
He wasn't trying to look for any of that.
No, he's just looking for the best ones.
Oh, okay.
And I respect it.
Because certain coaches out here looking for 3.5 GPAs and
defensive
linemen trying to say their mamas and whatnot. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've heard.
Yeah, allegedly.
So I've heard.
Maybe not so respectfully.